If you think what he did with the football was impressive,
Oh, no.
this man is now a doctor, and he has lost his eyesight back in 2020. That didn't stop him. No, that didn't stop him. Actually, that inspired
Right.
Dr. Lushozi to change the world, and he's busy doing that at the moment. Dr. Lushozi, so thank you, so grateful for you staying with us in the last 10 minutes or so of the show. Before we were talking about the school that you're involved with, part of your thesis was identifying the problems for children that have intellectual disabilities. You raised a lot of problems. How do we try and get on top of some of those problems? Is it a school issue? Is it a government issue? Can you isolate it to one way of doing things?
Yeah, well, it is the whole environment in which the education of the learners with disability takes place, which means the school, the training of teachers, and the legislation, which is the guidelines for teachers in terms of curriculum delivery in special schools. So I guess the most important one here is the framework.
Who sets that? Who sets that framework?
I think the Department of Education, if they could adjust the framework for training teachers who will fit the name special educator, who will be specializing. So it means training should be adjusted in such a way we train you to become a cerebral palsy teacher.
Almost a specialist.
A CP, teacher, a Down syndrome teacher, an autism spectrum teacher.
Yeah.
We started there. And then it's then that now we can say, teachers, this is a special school. Because the only people that are special in those special schools, because you will have, there are nurses, and there are therapists, which are relevant. The relevant people in special schools are the therapists, the health people, and did I say the therapist? Did I mention the therapist?
Right.
Yes, the psychologist. But the teachers, which are the main, the primary, the leaders, are not relevant.
And Dr. Lushozi, if I may just come in there, when you engage with teachers, when you engage even with the learners themselves, what are they saying? How do they want to be better supported? Where do they see the gaps, just in terms of how they can better maximize, obviously for teachers in their perspective, supporting, the learners in their perspective, basically receiving, the help they need, the families from their perspective, giving the support that they need to give as they play their role?
Yeah, well, the results indicate that, the plight of learners who are facing disabilities in South Africa still hangs in the balance. Because we have teachers that are willing to work and teach and help these learners, but they need relevant experience and training, which is still not there yet in South Africa. And we can still improve that sector by collaborating with other, scholars in the special pedagogy to improve the curriculum so that the teachers could be capacitated to can be able to give what they're supposed to give to these learners. So that, because if we don't support these learners enough, they will be forever remain our responsibilities. Because they don't get enough education to capacitate them to be independent, to be self-sufficient.
Are you... When I look at the research you've done, Doctor, again, I'm just referring back to your abstract, and forgive me if this is a little bit wordy, but PhDs tend to be, so forgive me. I'm going to just give viewers just a short excerpt from what you're saying, and it's going to lead into my question, because you were talking about the Department of Education earlier. So there's 4 themes identified, and I'll try and run through them. So 1, the combination of instructional models et al. 2, agents that are involved in the provision of education for the learners. 3, learners and identifying learners with different types of educational support needs through, and this is option 4, through a curriculum informed by a legislative framework. Now, given all the themes we've identified in your thesis, could this not be the framework that you can go to the Department of Education with and go, Minister, I have a framework. Is that the goal here? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yes. That builds a structure. That
So
now
this is applicable. You could use it.
Yes. It is a framework that it speaks to a structure that you could see that, you know, having to teach learners, for example, the first theme speaks to the different types of teaching styles and instructional models and strategies. And now the second theme speaks to the agents, people that are involved in the education of such a population, which means there's medical health people, there's therapists, there's educators, there's class assistants. But now the training of the teachers does not empower them to be able to work in the interdisciplinary environment where you have to consult to a therapist. How do we help Tumelo to write quickly? You know, because teachers traditionally have learned to be all alone, to the king, to the monarch. You know, you are the only one in the class. But now they have to teach in an environment where you need to consult, to use all the available resources. But you're going to have to be trained.
I was about to ask, are these, help me understand, forgive the ignorance, Doctor, the teachers that you're talking about now, that you're involved with at, for example, your school, are these teachers that are trained in an ordinary curriculum that are now working in an abnormal environment? Or are these teachers who have been trained in special needs? Or are they, I want to use the term ordinary, forgive me, but ordinary teachers just working for your school? Or have they been trained in some way or another?
Yeah, there is some training that takes place. But unfortunately, it doesn't mirror what is happening in the special schools. For example, the teachers are not trained to work in the within an interdisciplinary system where teachers have to, you know, from time to time you work with other colleagues of different expertise. And because, like I said, that teachers, traditionally, they are the one boss. So you need to learn to work in such an environment.
It's almost like working within a team in terms of it's a multidisciplinary team.
Because, for example, in the first world countries, they use what they call individualized education program. Education program that says Tumelo is afflicted with autism and she needs these support systems, which means there has to be maybe a therapist, there has to be, if he's on medication, if maybe they say he also has a comorbidity of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. He takes a retarding medicine. There has to be the involvement of the medical practitioner. You know, we are a team who support Tumelo. So we have to work as a team, and you have to be able to function in that individualized education program and fill in your space.
And you know, what I'm hearing from you, Doc, is that this intervention is very urgent, especially with COVID-19 and the impact it has had on our education system. It's exposed, you know, so much that still needs to be done in our education system. I can only hope, of course, that that engagement with the Department of Basic Education will continue, and also they have a read to this thesis, because you do offer some recommendations.
What I think we should be doing as well, Dr. Lushozi, as we say goodbye to you, we could talk to you all day, but we do need to say goodbye. I think we should actually follow up with our team, Basic Education Department, because I love your point, Tumzo, as well. This is difficult at the best of times with special needs children. Imagine during COVID what that must have been like. So Dr. Lushozi, Shoes, I would love the abstract that we were sent. congratulations on all the
Thank you
work
so
you've
much.
done. This is an inspiration. It
for
really
inviting me,
is.
guys.
Losing your sight in 2020 and still doing more work
Yeah.
than
Yes.
most people in this country
Absolutely.
are doing. Dr. Lushozi, thank you so much
Thank you.
I really
for coming.
appreciate
And it's been a wonderful interview. Please, if you've missed anything of it, go over to YouTube, go over to eNCA.com, revisit this, and I think we should follow this up
Absolutely.
with education
Yeah,
officials.
but this is, of course, we leave it for this morning. Newsleak is up next in about 5 minutes to take you, of course, to some of the headlines around the country. So